Hello, dear friends. We're starting our Sunday webinar, as usual, with Dr. Michael Laitman, Michael Sanilevich, Boris Borisolkovsky, and Simeon Vinokur. We are instructors for the World Academy of Kabbalah, and our topic is the method of Kabbalah, tools, actions, and laws. That's our topic.
Okay.
Please ask questions. We are translating to 22 languages. As usual, your questions will come through as needed. And we have an initial question from Mark from Kiev. Please list 3 main laws of the method of Kabbalah.
3 main principles of method of Kabbalah. It's that there is one force in nature, call it the nature or the creator, it doesn't matter, but it's a force. Just like we study forces in any science, physics, chemistry, and the same way we talk here about the one force which includes everything in itself, and it's called the creator. That's how we call it, or the nature. It's the same thing. We don't assign to it any qualities besides that it's one single, and it includes everything that exists in the creation. That's number 1. Let's call it the postulate, that nature created inanimate animal, vegetative natures and human nature. First 3 inanimate, vegetative and animal is managed by forces only, without any freedom of choice. And the human is called that part of nature which can react consciously, and to the degree of that conscious reaction, that part is called human. In Hebrew it's called Adam, similar to the creator. Like this upper force exists, the freedom of choice, possesses freedom of choice, the same way the human has the possibility to act freely, which has risen above its nature, which was given to it by the nature. He rises above it and can act above it. And that's why he's called like the creator in its freedom. That's second postulate. Third is that as a result of very special actions or exercises, everybody can achieve that state. To act freely just like him. Those are 3 main postulates.
So we have a creator and an opportunity for the creation to become similar to the creator.
Yes.
Michael? Okay, let's say uniqueness of the creator is also a law.
Yeah, of course there are other principles. We can't call them all off, 20 or 30 main conditions. These are also included in it. If the creator created everything and he includes everything in himself, of course.
I see. There's a question. What would you recommend for your students? 3 main recommendations for advancing towards the creator.
3 main recommendations. I would say as following. Number 1. Inclusion into a group where you can reveal the creator and approach him. That's number 1. Number 2 is studying original sources, Kabbalistic original sources. That's number 1, Bala Sulam and Rabash. That's number 1. Number 1 is a group. Number 2 is sources. and the teacher, which will lead you in a group with original sources. Without these three, the most important or fundamental components, you cannot hope on a good outcome.
I checked, I went through our textbooks. When a certain method is studied, then there are particular questions that can be answered. So what's the essence of Kabbalah?
The essence of Kabbalah, to say it, we could adhesion with the Creator.
The topic of studying Kabbalah?
The topic of study is our ego, how we can use it correctly, how we can approach the state.
Main part of the universe.
The main element is also our ego, which we can go above our nature.
Which proof do we have from Kabbalah?
Something that we receive as an experience in our life, based on our experience, no other way. Meaning, absolutely clear is determined by repetition of results and following by others following those results to prove those results and to knowledge. It's a science-based experience.
Which are the ways of attainment? Which ways towards coming to the goal?
To achieve the goal? Well, as I said, with the help of the group, with studying of the sources, under management of the right teacher.
Question, it's not clear. How can the desires from these protein beings come to love of the Creator?
First of all, these are not protein bodies. We don't deal with protein bodies here. Here we mean that we here we got the fetus, which is not related to the body. Only when we connect to with each other, and our bodily ego we put aside, and to the degree we succeed in it, we begin to sense in these connected desires, which is not related to our protein body. The expression of the Creator, the force of the...
In other words, we're talking about the 10 desires, not 10 bodies.
Of course. I understand that the question was as a provocation, maybe. Here we don't speak about our bodies at all.
Are we talking about one unified force, or can we divide it into 3 forces?
No, there's only one force, the force of the Creator, the force of nature, which governs in one single system, with one force of bestowal and love, and the other creation, the rest of creation is created by one force that by possessing the force which is opposite to the Creator, we merge with the Creator through our corrections.
The force of creation, is that not a force?
Yes.
So you said there's one force, but there are 2 forces, right?
No, the thing is, there is one problem here. We cannot just these terms. Does the ego exist? Of course it exists. Why it exists? To give us opportunity to achieve the opposite qualities, the altruism, love. And when we achieve those qualities, we find that these ego didn't never exist, and only to us it seemed like that it exists. For us to rise to the qualities of bestowal and love, maybe for now it's just empty words for most of the listeners, but I have to say what it is, how it is.
Okay, maybe let's repeat what we said earlier. First of all, Kabbalah is a science. Sciences have certain principles that are accepted. Can you please name these main principles, and then which logic is Kabbalah built on?
First of all, we need to understand here, Kabbalah is a science which is indeed, in its clearest form, Because here you deal with the axiom. Very simple. You have your life, and you begin to research what has been revealed by other Kabbalists before you. For instance, Adam. He exists in one nature of one single force, which includes all the nature in itself. It creates it, it leads it to some kind of goal by giving it its own opinion. First of all, it awakens the ego, in which all the forces are opposite, and on the other hand, it forces those parts to connect. So that system was revealed by Adam. It was described in his book, and the rest of Kabbalists developed that idea, and they researched it on themselves. It's not the theoretical science. It's not something that's just completely
one being experimented on.
Yes, it's about the person which reveals himself all the qualities. None of the Kabbalists wrote anything that he would not reveal. That's how it acts. That's how it's done. And every time I move forward, advance forward, all the data that I receive from Kabbalists as axioms, and I check on them on myself, and I find proof that way.
In traditional medicine, the doctor took the poison himself and then described how he felt. Second, there's another question. The work in the group. Which principles, which logic is the work in the group built? Can you give us a practical analysis of this?
About terminology, you can clarify them themselves. It's not important that me. If I meet you, I will pass it on to you, but I'm not interested in them. Because once again, I say that Kabbalah is a practical science, and we're not interested in the terminology. The Kabbalist language is the one that came from Adam, and through those letters, through vertical and horizontal lines, those lines we can understand the internal meaning, and each book depicts a sign of some sort, represents a sign. What else he asked? Oh, axiom. One axiom is simple. That the ego exists in me, and I research it on myself. And besides that, there is upper force which I can bring upon myself, which can govern the ego. But I just need to reveal it in me, above my ego. How can I do that? How can I approach this upper force? Kabbalists say that this upper force is the force of quality, the force of bestowal and connection. How can I achieve it? Specifically for that, we are born completely detached from one another after the sin, after that shattering of one single kli, after one person, which has evolved into many, many people. If we try in the group, gather together into one single aspiration to get to know the nature, otherwise you'll not get to know it. We are a laboratory, we are a research field, and therefore we connect under the leadership of the Kabbalist, and all of our aspirations to get to know that nature, it all connects into one. We rise above it, and we try to find in all our aspirations this one single force, and gradually it reveals itself, and it becomes bigger and bigger to us. It becomes mentally knowledgeable, then sensible to us, and thus we reveal this force in us. And when we reveal it, we realize that we are one single, and in that we reveal our connections, in which we reveal the Creator, which is called that force. Roman is asking which forces are used in Kabbalah. There are different forces of life, how they interact.
Rav, there are two forces in nature: the force of bestowal and force of reception.
How they affect the person?
They affect our desires. Desires to receive and desire to bestow. Desire to receive exists within us innately from the very beginning. That's how we were born and created. A desire to bestow, we need to win from the Creator Himself.
So you can look at, like in physics.
Just like physicists, and not only, we're operating with absolutely natural qualities and properties, and we don't deal with, when we talk about prayer and aspirations, we're talking about forces only.
So this force of bestowal, it's very vivid, right? We sense it.
It's like when I want to attract what I want. It's a force of reception.
So maximum reception. What about bestow?
The force of bestowal. Okay, if I have been influenced by your desire and would want for you to receive and fulfill your desire, then this force with which I want to fulfill your desire will be called the force of bestowal.
So it's not obvious, we still need to reveal it.
Yes, it's not revealed. If I want to feel you closer than I feel myself.
So potential exists, but
no,
it doesn't exist.
In potential, maybe it does exist.
Well, like electricity existed millions of years ago, and only now we're revealed.
Let's say it's like that.
And what's next?
Then I, with the help of these two forces, begin to regulate myself, and between these two forces, I begin to more and more determine the quality of bestowal and reception simultaneously, within which I begin to feel the Creator. The main thing for me is to reveal the Creator more and more between these two opposite forces, reception and bestowal.
So there's one question: which forces can we use? Well, before studying Kabbalah, which forces we can use after?
Before the Kabbalah, there's an egoistic animal force. That's what he feels. When he starts studying Kabbalah, then there appears within him an egoistic human force, more egoistic. He desires to capture the Creator. He wants to take everything inside. And at the same time, with this, he needs, with his efforts in the group and in the study, develop a force of bestowal. And only between these two opposites, pluses and minuses, he can organize a system which is called a soul.
It's always not easy for a person, and we always tell him that he exists in between those two forces. He doesn't negate his ego, and above it, he...
Yes, the ego is necessary. We don't destroy it. We just balance it correctly with the positive force.
One clarifying question. How do we determine egoism and altruism?
Baal Salam defines this. Egoism is self-love, when I desire to fulfill myself despite of everyone else, regardless of anyone else, as much as possible. Altruism is when I desire to fulfill others, giving from myself everything that's possible, despite of myself, for another's benefit.
Nietzsche is saying, what's the difference between light and light that returns? And
we're talking about a force of direction towards either myself or another. Only these two vectors exist, and in their correspondence exists everything in nature, on all the degrees, animalistic, vegetative, and human.
by known Kabbalists, why such a complicated system was developed by Kabbalists of four natures.
This is a gradual development of the light, 4 stages of dissemination of light. You study this in campus. Inanimate, vegetative, animate, and human. These are 4 stages of desire. That's how we study it.
Question: Can that the person that studies Kabbalah, can he not achieve the goal?
Of course he can. It's a science. Perhaps not everyone can be an Einstein. Everybody wants to be an Einstein, but people reach only certain degrees. Everything's possible. One needs to aspire towards the maximum that he can. And if he works correctly, then he will absolutely reach that maximum. Because within a system, when each one reaches his root, he discovers himself as the highest in relation to others, that he passes light through everyone else, and he is that special, essential source for everyone else.
Question: with the right connection between 3 elements of resources, teacher, and the group, is it easier in advanced?
Ascend to a higher degree, I wouldn't say that it gets simpler. It's special for each person individually. Every person goes through very similar stages, degrees, but each one feels it differently. So, everything that's described in the articles, let's say in the Shamati, in Rabash, everyone goes through those states, but each one in his own style.
We've talked about laws, forces, and instruments, and now we would like to review a few of those instruments. We spoke about the interaction between 3 elements of sources, teacher, and the group. Yes. So let's review the first one, the interaction between the student and the teacher. What is it?
Interaction between the student and the teacher are in the fact that the teacher listens and tries to realize what the teacher says, while realizing this on himself in the group as much as it is possible, and gradually he realizes advices of the teachers, of the instructors, until he comes to a state when he attains together with the group. He's the one that attains. The group may not be in attainment. Each one attains a state on his own. He comes to such a state within the group when he's connected with them and comes into such contact with them, when he begins to feel this field between them. And this is called the creator. And then he starts to inspect this field. Why is it called the creator? Because it created practically their desires and holds them within it. He discovers this field and begins to inspect it. And this is the topic of the method of Kabbalah. The way Baal Salam writes in his articles, the essence of the science of Kabbalah, then this is a revelation of Creator in this world. Where does it happen? In the group, under whose guidance? The teachers, while implementing the advices of the Kabbalists.
So the role of the teacher is critical. Without the teacher, it's impossible, right?
No, not possible. Because here you're walking into the unknown. If in physics you can discover things here and there by poking around, in spiritual it's not possible. Without a group and a teacher, you will not be able to.
The books, what's the goal today?
You have books, the internet, but the sources are necessary so that you can format yourself according to the group.
It's always been like that in history? Always there were books?
Of course, they were written. We have texts that were written 3,000 years ago. Abraham, for instance, wrote in Babylon the book of creation. It's over 3,500 years old. Then we have the big Midrash. It's about 3,200 years old. These are books that were written by Kabbalists, and aside from them, what else is there to write about?
The fact of the book, if there's a teacher and a student, isn't that enough?
In reality, these books were not written for every student, and there weren't a lot of them. Like today, there are 1,000 volumes of books that can be printed. We didn't have it then. Kabbalists were writing down, and then it was passed on to other teachers, and he taught students through them. Talmud, for instance. It was created 1,000 years ago. Mishnah, Torah, I'm not even talking about Torah, the holy writings, the prophets, all these things were written 3,000 years ago. How is it possible to be without books? How can a person advance if he doesn't have an instruction? To attain what is not attainable, to sense which is not sensible, to...
Yeah, but he has a teacher that explains.
Even though he has a teacher, he still needs a book. And the teacher himself tries to write things down in order to pass his experience to the next generation.
No, I'm trying to understand, is there some kind of effect of a book on the student?
Yes, especially now, when we don't have very clear teachers.
We have advanced students here. The question here, why a person needs attainment of the upper world, and if the Creator leads him?
One soul doesn't teach him, it leads him in the same direction stream that the teacher leads him in. The soul of a person, it just seeps through him as an echo to the book, to the teacher.
Another question. A person that started studying Kabbalah understands that all of our desires in our world don't fulfill, and even spiritual don't fulfill yet. Where would we get energy to act? Because it takes years.
Only through the group. Only from the group.
There are no other options, right?
This is the best option, because here you receive the energy of the Creator, or Makif as it's called.
Question: the spiritual stronger person is more spiritual?
Yes, the more a person advances on the spiritual ladder, then naturally he acquires greater opposite forces, the egoistic and altruistic.
Each one has its own expression, even egoistical force has its own.
Of course, and his descents and ascents are greater too.
So on the side, the amplitude is not clear.
No, from the side, no one knows anything. Spiritual processes that a Kabbalist goes through, they're not visible or known externally to anyone. Do you feel anything looking at me? What are you shy to say? I'm always prickly. Is it always bad?
No. Always different states. No, not in you. For instance, the state of ascents. Like I made a book with you, and I never left after the program with you. And I would always think, how is it happening in you? Such an ascent, constantly.
What happens?
Always. Well, it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter.
Maybe it's not an ascent. Only through connection, through the students with the Creator.
The guys here remind me, the operators. Another question here from Minsk. What does it depend on the ability of the student not only to hear the student, a teacher?
From annulling himself before the teacher. Not himself, but his ego.
Another question, how the student checks himself if he effectively realizes the advices of Kabbalist?
Also by annulling himself before the advices of the teacher. Everything is built upon annulment.
So around this annulment we can do...
Yes, nothing else besides it exists. What else? Besides that, we have our ego, and upon it we build our spiritual degrees.
So upon that is based the work in the group.
In relation to the Creator, to the group, to the teacher, only ascending above your ego.
What is annulment, please explain?
Annulment is when I prefer his qualities and desires and aspirations and directions above my own.
Why are there so many Kabbalists speak about annulment? It's clear. It's in sports, for instance. There's a trainer, and it's clear that you're known to him. And
yes, it's true. Your ego helps you. You want to listen to your trainer because you want to attain a certain result, and the trainer wants you to teach a certain result, and the ego wants you to attain a certain result. What happens in Kabbalah? The opposite.
In Kabbalah, it's opposite. The trainer wants you to achieve the good results.
And I also want to achieve a result.
No, you cannot press up on yourself. You need to, through the group, attract the upper light, and through the upper light, you need to work on yourself.
I can't, or I don't want to?
No, you can't. You can. But you must do everything possible to be able to. And then you receive the upper light, which executes all that.
It's interesting that in Kabbalah, all these exercises are given that you cannot actually do.
Of course, because it's your nature, and against it, you need to go to rise above it.
I'm just trying to understand a method. In any other method, you're given a certain way to certain exercises that are known to be solvable, even though it's difficult. Here, in the very beginning, you're giving something that you cannot accomplish.
You're not able to.
What does it bring towards?
That you need to ask the group, the teacher, the creator to do it. You need to completely annul yourself.
And you can't even do that.
Try.
That's a question. Why then this force of annulment was never talked about? What is this force of annulment? That's a question. Why have we never talked about this force of annulment before?
What do you mean we didn't speak about it there? What is simsum? What is the
restriction?
A screen, masach, and what is akad? No, it's incorrect.
A question from Moscow. All Kabbalists have a dual perception of me and my ego?
Me, it depends on what they associate themselves with the point in the heart or their ego. Well, if with the one and the other, then he really feels himself split into two parts, dual.
And it's good to be in this state, right?
Yes, very good. And not to leave it, this direction of thought, of this, that I contain two parts.
So on one hand, I am inside of Egypt, on the other hand, I'm out of Egypt?
No, not only that. At any point in my life, I consist of two parts. One thing what Creator wants, and another thing what I want.
Lee from Peter is asking, upon which depends the strength of my soul, and how can I increase it?
The force of the soul depends on the ego. To what its thickness, I can step to rise above it. And that measures the force of the soul.
Maybe clarify what a soul is.
The soul is the force of love which we acquire through the upper light.
Which is why you need to step on it through annulment.
Yes, and we can achieve it through the annulment of ego.
Question, the action of restriction and the screen is the same thing?
Restriction is, how to say it? It's when I refuse to receive for myself, and the screen is when I work above myself.
So I check what I can and what I cannot do. Can you say a few words about the process of learning the lesson itself? How is the preparation like, the main part of the lesson, the homework, the method of conducting a lesson? Why is it so?
It changes with us. Throughout the years, it has been changing. When I had the first group, with you, with Simeon, it was about 20 years ago. With me, 22.
I'm 22 and Mushi's 20.
Yeah, so I saw people which were sitting in front of me, and I understood that I have to give them more of a science of Kabbalah. And therefore, we studied Introduction to Science of Kabbalah by Baal Salam, the worlds, the Partzufim, Sfirot, and so on and so forth, and other elements of the spiritual state. And we studied a lot of that for many years, and we also evolved the studying of Talmud Sfirot, and we didn't really study the group work. And now we gradually begin to introduce the elements of the group work. I think
1999.
Yes, so next, maybe today it's different. Today the new ones come, new students come, and they fall into tents, and I don't know how they survived it, but they should do, like kids today, survive with telephones and all those toys. So
The process of learning changed throughout history.
yes, I think it did, and we are in such a historical time of advancement that people cannot wait until they study those 10 Sfirot and worlds and Sfirot, and from page to page, how we went through one to another with writings, and look at the archive, how it's filled with all those lessons. And today the world comes closer and closer with what it needs, that it needs to achieve the connection, the balance between people, and it sends its globalism. At the same time, it's shattered state, and we need to approach it with different point of view until the point in the heart wouldn't awaken, and then gradually would approach the Kabbalah. And today it's all more vividly, it's more brighter, sharper, the demand that we would change ourselves. We would change the society in which we exist, and therefore today we begin to, maybe not immediately, but after a month or two, we begin in the group to talk about what we need to enter the spiritual sensation.
The most optimal time of study during the week or day, how many hours a week does a person need to study?
The person needs to gradually bring himself to the state where he lives in it, because he readies himself for entering the upper world. It does negate this world, but it becomes as a extension of our world, and everything he sees around himself will be a spirituality. How much he needs to study it, how much he needs to think about it, eternally.
I'm talking about inner work, when a person sits together with a group, with teachers, books.
I think it's 2 hours minimum a day, every day. There are those that study half an hour, but every day. Here,
So it's important to study every day.
yes, you can't study 10 hours once a week. You need to divide it to every day.
Why not?
Because the soul renews itself every day.
An example of attainment of certain heights. You have attained great heights. It's not possible. You say that everyone can reach it. Einstein.
Yeah, the Einstein was gifted. He was able to see internality of the world. What is the genius? The genius is that a genius person sees the internal connections and opposites, and he can mathematically describe them. First of all, there's mathematics, and through connection of different opposite forces of nature, and he sees how they connect, he comes with new form, with a new expression, with a new revelation of natural forces, and that's what Einstein did, and that's why the mathematics is the base for every science. But mathematics is not a science itself, but the way of describing the nature. The nature is the net of connections between us.
Tell me, what does it mean to prepare for the lesson throughout the day?
To tune in to the lesson, it means to be prepared, means that I prepare myself in a specific desire of attaining the Creator through connecting in the group, so that I would reveal Him and His quality, because the Creator is the quality of connection between us. We don't attain any natural forces except for its expression in things in the world, like the light. It lets my eye, because there's no light in my head, but because some movements in my ear, and then I feel it in my brain. It's not really related to the sound vibrations at all. So, attainment of the sound or the light or the taste of something or the Creator, it's the same thing. We just need to tune ourselves to
so it's a more qualitative force, the Creator.
It's qualitative force because it's reveals itself in connection between two opposites. And in fact, between us, it's also revealed as the connection between two opposites. And I forget the words. How do you call it? Yeah, everything we sense, plus and minus, sour, bitter, and sweet, the light and the shadow, everything is on the opposites, in contrast, and there is nothing opposite to our ego. And when we begin to generate new quality in us, the quality of love and bestowal, then inside of us, in those contradictions between two forces, what exists in us? We begin to realize what created. That's that force of the Creator.
This is that sensor?
Yes, that's the soul. That there is this field. It's called
so until you work in these opposites, you exist in this egoistic plane. When you begin to oppose these two together, you begin your search for the Creator. Okay, question. Which actions can a Kabbalist do that I am unable to do?
Only spiritual. What else? In our world, we live in an animalistic body. Besides that, the Kabbalist cannot do anything that goes outside of his capability of his animalistic body. Here, I can only do functions only my body allows me to.
You've described these forces so nicely, how the Creator is revealed between them, but what is it similar to in our world?
To any sensor, to anything really. When you have two forces, and with those two opposite forces, you can research anything. How else are built all the measuring tools?
Valentina is asking, is there no danger to go crazy when there's constant duplicity between me and my ego?
I think it's better to detach yourself from that force and to research it from the side to see how what animals we are, what egoists, and to try to compare it with something else.
So he exists, but I look at him from the side.
Yeah, but I don't suffer from it at all. I objectively look at it. It's a very great force in nature which helps me to rise above itself.
What's interesting, I'm asking on my own behalf, why don't you give homework? I never remember you giving homework.
You miss it? Okay, tomorrow I will announce that everybody receives homework because of your demand.
You have a task of the day, though. Maybe write some work, some seminars.
Now, hold on a second. You have a morning lesson which remains with you, and you have to repeat it, if possible, maybe once or 2 times. I know some people that listen to the morning lesson twice a day. They have the day to listen. They have physical work of some sort.
The Rabash didn't give you assignments?
Well, at that time there wasn't the technology available, so I could walk around with headphones, of which there were no phones, that you could read some excerpts. I had like stereo, like 2 kilos.
Still, all of your books are written from inside out.
I studied like a student.
You came from science.
Yes, of course. Nobody else drew, and I couldn't do otherwise. I had to write down everything that was in the book. I had to write down.
You can feel Russian education here.
Yeah, it's education. You can't do anything. After 6 years of studying in university, and of course I'm like that. Valery is asking to describe the upper forces, upper actions.
It's when you wish, Rav, it's when you wish good for another, for his own sake, and not for your own sake. That's called the spiritual.
Question from American. If I put my life to the serving my city, my country, why do you call me the egoist?
Not only for the sake of your country or your city, but for the sake of the entire universe, the entire world. The fact that you're doing good for others out of your own nature is called the egoism, because your nature is egoistic, and it may seem to you that you're doing good for all these people. Listen to what all these politicians are talking about. They seem to be like the best people in the world and speak from the purity of their heart, right? But we know, we can see. But I'd like to just tell you that all of us are egoists, but it's not a bad thing. We don't need to kill or erase this egoism from ourselves. We need to balance it with opposite qualities, and not for the sake of correcting it. You don't need to correct it, but so that between it and the opposite to it quality, we would reveal the upper force, and then we enter a new opposite state. Perfection, eternality.
But you always say to rise above itself. That's what it is?
It is, yes, ascending above it.
Tell us the effect of the light. How can we depict it to ourselves?
The influence of the light we can feel upon ourselves as a revelation within us of the quality of understanding another, sensing another's desire, an opportunity to sense him within me.
So more tolerant to other people?
No, these are your nice qualities. You're such a gentleman or a gentleman, very tolerant.
The main methodologist. Well, what does it mean to sense the other, to feel the other?
I can't explain to you, just feel it.
The question, please explain which material is the good force is made in, and the bad force.
Undoubtedly. If you're doing it for your ego, then of course you'll feel it as good. But if you do it for his spiritual, then it will feel as bad, as evil.
It's like in Zor, is with the donkey, when they pinch the donkey.
It depends with what a person associates himself with, his ego or with something that's higher than it.
Who needs to study Kabbalah?
For those that want it, and only.
How the book affects the person? Question. A person opens the book, the text itself influences him. When I open a book of good food, for instance, I begin, my saliva gets generated. It describes some kind of a...
It's not the book that influences, but what influences.
What's written in it?
So what's written, it's something that you feel within yourself, and it influences your taste buds, right? If within you there exists, similar to a desire towards good food, if you have a similar desire towards attaining your soul, attaining the Creator, then a corresponding book evokes within you similar sensations, that you feel that you need it and you need to fulfill yourself with it.
So if that Kabbalist reads the book, he can become sensitive and so on.
If it's a Kabbalist, then he feels when he reads. When he fulfills himself by reading a book, he really takes it in. That's the difference.
It's like when a person watches a movie and some emotions are awake and he can cry, and we emphasize it's the same way.
Even more. Can you even compare spiritual sensations with animalistic ones?
Well, we don't know, but what about the person who hasn't achieved yet? How it affects him?
Depending which degree he's on. Closer or further from attainment.
Further.
If he's further, then it may not influence him at all. It can maybe irritate him that he wants to.
About understanding the book, please explain why during the lesson you read several times and how to accelerate the understanding of the book.
It's written so. In order to correctly understand the text, you need to read it at least twice. That's how it's done. If this is the study of the 10 Sefirot,
about the birth, we studied twice last time also.
Let's say we read a book where in the beginning on top we have a source text, let's say Ari, and then the bottom it's the commentary from Baal Salam. Then Ari is written twice and Baal Salam once. If you want to repeat this, then you can do so. That's how it acts. Prior to the text that's read twice, it's not possible to really grasp it. From the point of view of Kabbalah, we learn that when the light descends the first time, it builds the Kli, and then the second time, it already connects with the Kli.
The question, are there laws, spiritual laws, which you can follow without with affecting this world?
Spiritual laws in our world? I don't know. Try to be nice to people. Try to always be good to the world. These laws are also so good in our world. Consequences will be good as well.
Another question: is there freedom of choice to what to associate yourself with? What are the is there freedom of what to associate ourselves with?
We don't have any freedom. We are complete animals, and we have no freedom at all, no matter how much we talk about it. Freedom is acquired by a person when he has a desire upon which he can restrict himself, and he begins to be similar to the Creator in this reflected light, and in that he becomes similar to the Creator. He becomes Adam. He's no longer similar to an animal or donkey. He's free.
What is the
measure of my bestowal to the group?
Okay, right. Can we use it not for the sake of the spiritual, those forces?
Not for the sake of the spiritual goals, it's not possible. He only works for bestowal. This is a quality that comes out of your desire to fulfill others. It contradicts the entire system.
Question from Moscow. Please explain to us what is internal work in Kabbalah.
Inner work is when I work within myself with my desires, opposite desires, correspondence with different desires, with intentions. This is spiritual work.
Question from Berlin. An example of electricity. In the past 100 years, we've improved its usage. In 100 years, people will use it differently?
I think that a lot sooner. In the world that we're in right now, and more so every day, we will have to call upon the force of the Creator to help us much faster, much sooner than 100 years from now. Otherwise, we'll simply eat each other.
Alexander from Minsk. How to balance correctly between animalistic and spirituality in our world?
Do so that your animalistic pleasures wouldn't stand in your way. Just give your body whatever it needs so that it wouldn't prevent you from advancing spiritually.
This forever question. Try to be nice to people. Try to change the world. Isn't that ethics moral? What's the point? What's the point here? Where is the place of Kabbalah?
That's not correct. Just to be good to people is meaningless. You're not pulling them towards good and eternality and perfection. You can do whatever you want. You can give them whatever you want, but they'll remain in the same degree and nothing will happen with them. You have to give them a method of attaining the Creator. We are in this world temporarily in order to ascend to the level of the Creator. You want to do good to the people, then help them in this.
I want to continue. First of all, who came up with this? The love of other Kabbalists came up with it, right?
They didn't make this up. They revealed this as an upper law, because nature is integral and global, which is why everything in it is connected.
So they didn't think that people will help each other. They thought of something else, right?
There's no help to one another. People are simply acting egoistically towards one another. They think they're helping others, but with that they're actually calming themselves down.
How is it?
Very simply. Give an example of volunteering organizations that are helping each other, that are willing to die for others, right? All of this is ego.
No, that's probably clear, but it comes up that Kabbalists, when they reveal these laws of love and mutual guarantee, what they meant by that?
What they meant by it is that they need to bring this to all of the nations of the world. This is what Abraham wanted to do in ancient Babylon.
What does it mean that according to law of Kabbalah, to love thy neighbor, if not to help?
To love your neighbor as yourself, you need to come to a state when you feel your friend as yourself. And then between you, there reveals the Creator. Revelation of the Creator is the upper essence of our existence, because with that we ascend to the next degree of development, to the spiritual degree, and our world exists only in order to push us towards this development. In our world, there's nothing final.
When he senses the neighbor as himself, wouldn't he help him?
Yes, but for what reason? Maybe we'll talk about this in the next lesson, but only for the sake of attaining the Creator. Why does the Creator give us all these problems? So that we would help us. He ruins everything and we correct his mistakes. He's good and he's bad and we're good.
Well, to these questions and other questions, I offer to residents of Moscow and Kiev and other cities, I offer them to participate in lectures tomorrow. It's going to be in Kiev. On the 6th, it's going to be in Moscow. Please come. You will be able to talk to the teachers, and you'll be able to receive answers to all the questions. And on the 20 to 22nd of February, we have a big congress in Israel. Please come and feel.
Well, yeah, by the way, you can come and participate. My wishes are we will continue to study, to advance. You'll see how this expands with a new understanding of life, your horizons. You have everything in front of you. It will be good. Good luck. I'm with you.